Okay, good morning, everybody. I think we're going to start now. Can you hear me now? Okay, I think everyone can hear me now. Good morning. This turnout is amazing. I'm so happy to see all of you here today. And my name is Steve Arion. I'm the City of Palm Desert's risk manager. And it's my honor to welcome you all to my first annual City of Palm Desert Town Hall meeting. We have an exciting agenda here today. We have our speakers. I would like to introduce them all. If you could just stand up or raise your hands. We have Kathleen Henderson with Riverside County OES. Kathleen. We have Michelle Elman from American Red Cross. And we have Teresa Gonzalez with the California Emergency Management Agency. And in the back there, we have Jennifer Cusack with Southern California Edison. Hi, Jennifer. And do we have Deborah here from the gas company? No? Not yet. Okay. Well, with that, I know our time is of the essence. We'll start off with Kathleen from OES, who's going to talk about general disaster preparedness information and the role of the County Office of Emergency Services. Kathleen.
Can you guys hear me? I got all these, or it might be easier. Is this easier? Okay, because I like to walk around. It's a little nervous there. Let me give you a little bit of what we do. This is our mission statement for OES and emergency management. As you notice, it's all hazard approach. A lot of people out here, we like to talk about earthquakes because that's the biggest thing because we're near the San Andreas Fault, but we like to look at everything as an all hazard approach. So we're not just preparing for earthquakes, we're preparing for power outages, we're preparing for hazardous materials, we're preparing for floods, we're preparing for, whatever's out there. So we just don't look at earthquakes, we look at everything. So it's an all-hazard approach. And we look at it in 4 phases, which is preparation, response, recovery, and then building and mitigation. So, and what our office does is we do a lot with working with the cities. I work with the cities in the west part of the desert, which is Palm Springs to La Quinta, making sure they have their emergency operation plans, making sure that the cities are prepared to continue on with their operations during the disaster. And then we work in the response phase, and then we do the mitigation and the recovery phase. And I'm glad Callie May is here to talk about some of the recoveries that we have for individual assistance. Is there any questions? Are we going to do questions at the end, Steve?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So, and we're kind of the liaison from your local level, from the city, you go to the county, then from the county we go to the state, or from the REOC, which is a local area, and then we go to the state. So we're kind of the in-between for the city and the state. So if they can't fill resources here, they go to us. And then if we can't fill resources, then we go to the state and get the resources. And obviously if we can't get the resources then we go to the national level and we pull from resources out there. So there's a lot of flexibility in what we do. So we talk about earthquakes. Here in Riverside County, we're a great county. Love it out here. But the biggest thing is we have 3 of the largest faults in the state of California. How many of you guys knew that? Oh, great. I wish when I was in middle school I paid more attention to the life science class now. If I knew what I was going to do then, I would have paid more attention. But yeah, we have 3 of the largest faults, the San Andreas Fault, the Elsinore Fault, and the San Jacinto Fault, which are huge for this county. So we're always looking at that. Whoops, sorry about that. Whoa. Hold on, got a little clicker happy. Where do we start? We talk about mitigation. When we look at mitigation, we talk about planning. Mitigation is basically strapping your cabinet shut, strapping those flat screen TVs to the wall, taking things down, strapping your water heaters down. If you're in a mobile home park, strapping your mobile homes down, to the foundation. Planning is looking at your plans. We look at the plans for the city, we look at plans for the county, but each mobile home park can also have a plan, a response plan and a recovery plan. Obviously the response is on our lovely CAL FIRE guys up here and the Sheriff's Department, and then the recovery phase afterwards. And usually it takes probably for recovery, for every day of the emergency, it's probably about 10 days in recovery. So 1 to 10 ratio during the recovery phase. Recovery is the longest for us. Mitigation, earthquake proofing your home, conducting a hazard hunt. Look in your kitchen. Are your cabinets fastened to those new nice little latches they have, the child-proof latches? Those can lock your cabinet doors so stuff doesn't fall off. In your bedrooms, making sure you don't have large mirrors hanging over your bed. You know, they look great, but what's the first thing that's going to come down on top of you at night? In your office spaces, looking at any kind of hazard, your filing cabinets or anything. In your garage, you know, do you have shelves that are hanging up on the wall? Are they fastened to the wall? Are they fastened to the studs? Those are the things that you're looking for. That's how we mitigate the hazards. Whoops, gosh, click happy today, too much coffee. The next thing is establishing a plan. What do you do before and during an earthquake or emergency? You know, obviously earthquake, what do we tell people to do? Drop, cover, and hold on. You know, this is a great table. I wish I was here. This thing's pretty sturdy there, Stephen. But, you know, drop, cover, and hold on is what we tell people to do. That's your plan. Look in your house. You know, if I'm in my bedroom, what am I going to do? Drop, cover, and hold on. If I'm in, you know, if you're at work and you have an office space or a place that you spend most of your time, where are you going to drop, cover, and hold? Those are places that you should be looking at. I guess it's kind of the event of what I do. When I go into a building, I'm always looking at the exits. And not just the exit that I came in, because that's where everybody naturally gravitates to, is where we came in, but where's the other exit I can get out of? So I'm always looking, where are the exits that I can leave if I have to? Have supplies ready. How many of you have supplies? For how long? A year? Oh, this lady has, okay, what's your address? That's all right. I still can go there. I deal with the whole county. So yeah, we usually say 7 to 10 days. 7 to 10 days is what we tell people to have planned for. Do you have an out-of-state contact? You know, we say that because the phone lines locally can go down, but you can call out of state. What's funny is cell phones nowadays, you may not be able to call on your cell phone, but texting takes a lower bandwidth, so you could probably text somebody easier than you can actually call them on your cell phone. I know my mom's like, you want me to what? Yeah, it's called texting, Mom. It's okay. Your 10-year-old granddaughter does it all the time. You know, but yeah, it's texting actually is easier, so you can, you know, if you're really into that stuff, texting's great. Plan where to meet if you can't get back home. You know, I live in Hemet. You know, obviously when I leave Hemet and I commute, so if I leave and I'm coming to this side of the valley, my family knows if something major happens, Mom's not coming home for a couple days, probably 7 to 10 days. So I say stuck, but I'm not really stuck. I like it out here, so I'm out here. But where are we going to meet? You know, my husband works locally, so he has the kids, and you know, we're going to meet at the nearest park, you know, or things like that. So have those conversations. If we're out and about and you can't get back home, where are you going to meet? Or if you're in your house, where are you going to meet? Having a fire escape plan. You know, it's just like we teach the kids in school. Have a fire escape plan. We're going to come out the house. We're going to all meet by the big oak tree out front or the big palm tree out front. You know, start by asking yourself some questions. Staying warm is not necessarily an issue during the summer out here, but during the winter time, it gets really cold. So look at those things, because most of us pack our emergency kits, we pack them for whatever season we're in. You know, right now you're thinking it's summer, so we're not thinking about the winter time, but you have to think about, it gets cold out here during the winter time. So you have to think about, what can I put in my kit now that's going to help me from later? Unless you're going to go through your kit. I say go through your kit when we change the time, you know, when we spring forward and fall back, change your smoke detector, battery, change your water, check your kit. It all happens at the same time. So what do I need to store water and food in? What do I need to see in the dark? What do I need to eat and drink or cook? Maybe you have a special diet. You know, I always say top ramen's great, but I have kids. They eat top ramen raw on a regular basis. So I keep a lot of it in the house. So, but some people have special diets. You know, so you have to look at that individually, what kind of diet you have and what will you need. And what do you already have in your home? You don't have to go out and buy everything automatically. You may already have some of this stuff in your home. We're really good about going to Costco now. We all buy bulk items at Costco, right? The great warehouse stores that we have nowadays. Drinking water. How many of you have drinking water in your car? Yay. Everybody should have drinking water in their car out here because of the Interstate 10 closures that we have. People have been known to be stuck on the freeways for 5 to 6 hours without water. So 1 gallon per day per person. Where to store water? You want a cool, dry place. I'm saying that to people that live in the desert, I know. Cool, dry place. Where is that? You know what? In your garage is fine. In the trunk of your car is fine. If you rotate it every 6 months, it'll be perfectly fine. Consider additional water sources, pools, spas. I don't consider pools and spas for drinking, but for bathing because of the chemicals in them. Water heater, if you stop it, you can actually backfill the water heater, the water out of it, and you can drink it. The tank of the toilet, you can actually drink the water from the tank of the toilet. So look at those other sources. No, I just went drinking it all because of the chemicals in there. Yeah. Household, what do you have in your household? How much peanut butter, how much protein bars? Those are things that pack well and stay for a long time. So look at those things that you have. And this presentation that I have is we did it on, it's called a low-cost disaster on a budget. So everything that they bought for this disaster supply kit came out of the 99-cent store. Now, they have great kits that you can buy from the retailers out here, but we also try to gear this towards people who don't have a large income. So that what can you buy? They went to a 99-cent store and bought a kit and bought everything from the 99-cent store and made a kit. And it was really cheap, less than $40. So samples of canned food, dried nuts and fruits. Biggest thing is protecting family assets, maintaining hard copies of your vital records, birth certificates, driver's license. I always say if you want to remain married, keep copies of your marriage certificates. If you don't, go ahead and lose it. You can be unmarried for a while. But having hard copies of these somewhere else other than, we store all of this stuff in a fireproof safe. Now, that's great, except the safe weighs, I don't know how many tons. I don't know how I'm going to get it out, and I always forget the combination. So I have problems. So, but keeping them in a dried seal, even in a gallon baggie, seal it up, stick it in your freezer, and keep it in there for a while. Have cash available. How many of you have, this question, here you go. How many have cash on you right now? All right, we're going to lunch. Yeah. Have cash on you, because if the disaster happens, the ATM machines are going to go down, the debit card machines are going to go down. People, you're not going to be able to buy stuff. It'll take a long time for the banking system to come up for us to actually have money. So have cash available and have small bills, because how are you going to get change for a $100 bill? Unless you're really desperate, I have a gallon of water, I'll sell you. So, but have that. First aid, learn basic first aid and CPR. Learn it beforehand. Literature from health clinics or anything, basic first aid booklets and stuff that you can have. Go to your doctor's and dentist office and ask for free samples of bandages, toothbrushes, pasting, extra prescriptions. Some of your doctor's offices get samples. If you ask them for samples of your prescription, that can help you build up your extra prescription supply, because having those extra prescriptions. If it's a maintenance drug, usually you can get a 90-day supply, which is really good, but having that extra 2-week supply of a lot of prescriptions is difficult because of the healthcare system we're in. But if you ask your doctor for samples, they should have them. And usually I heard on like a Thursday, Wednesday and Thursday last week of the month is usually when they hit them. Medical supplies, like I said, a dollar store, everything there is under $1. Lighting sources, heating, extra blankets, sleeping bags, flashlights with batteries, lanterns, generators, light sticks. They're great. They can last for 12 hours. The very, very, very last resort that we require people to have are candles, because they start fire and never leave the candles unattended or around children. So, clothing, we talked about that. There's a big thing is, you can shop at thrift stores for surplus warehouse stores or anything like that for clothing if you don't have the money. How about for pets? How many of you would leave your pets? One person raised his hand, he'd leave his pet anytime. Most people will not leave their pet, and we've learned this from Katrina. And so we try to set up our shelters. You're allowed to have service pets in shelters, but you're not supposed to have regular pets in shelters. So we try to work with the Red Cross and sheltering people to set up pet sheltering near the human shelter, so you can have them somewhat closer together. So, but making sure you have leashes and collars, and if they have medical records, if they take medication, learn pet first aid. There's some great resources out here for pet first aid. There's a lot of, what is the, she's telling me the Red Cross has the pet CPR and first aid classes that they get. So they're great resources. But make sure you have collars and leashes and everything for them, and any kind of food and water for your pets. Get a collection of Preparedness library, earthquake books. Every time you come to these things, there's usually pamphlets that are handed out. Gather those up and have them, because maybe you don't remember how to turn off the gas, but the gas company may have a book that you can open up and go, oh yeah, that's how you turn off the gas. That's right, I remember this now. There's tons of stuff in here. Camping guides are great. Basic home repair manuals, knowing those things are good. Protecting your family and your property. Get to know your neighbors. We live in a society where everyone lives in like a little bit of a cyclone. My coworkers laugh at me because my neighbors and I were like interchangeable. Our kids run from house to house. They don't even knock on the door. They just open each other's door and walk right into the houses. They're so comfortable with each other or in the houses and stuff. But a lot of people don't live like that. But in a disaster, is somebody that's going to cause problem going to go to that single person, or are they going to go to the group of people first? They're going to go to that one person that's isolated by themselves before they go to the group of people. So you want to get a group of people, and so get to know your neighbors. Anybody from the city of La Quinta? You guys ever do the PrEP program? Best thing about that was when Paul Hess said, serve food, wine and cheese. I said, I'm there. He said, serve wine and cheese and talk about disasters. But doing the PrEP program is great. Taking CERT is great. Having a barbecue and just talking about what you would do would be a great thing for you to do. Neighborhood watch, some great cops, all those resources that are out there. How many have taken CERT? How many of you would like to take CERT? Please see us. We'll make sure we get you into class. We have classes in the city of Palm Desert. There's classes in the city of Rancho Mirage. There's classes in the county of Riverside, Desert Hot Springs. There's enough classes out there where we can get people into them and get them so you can become CERT trained. The response size, drop, cover, and hold. Check your family, check your home. How many of you know how to turn off your utilities? Good job. That's what we want. Recovery, your gas is turned off. You will need to arrange for the gas company to turn it back on. And did I hit my 20 minutes? All right, I try to do that in 20 minutes. We'll do questions after everybody's done. Okay, is there any questions? Yes.
What is your last name? I didn't get it.
Oh, I'm sorry. My name is Kathleen Henderson, Hendrson. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. Almost all the furniture in our house is glass. Our dining room table, all of our tables. They would not be safe for us to pick up the wonder. I don't know what to do.
The best thing for you to do is the duck cover and hold is just to get on the ground, cover up your head, and hold on to anything. Don't get under the glass, though, because if something falls on top of it, it'll break. So just, yeah, cover your head. Yes, ma'am.
I would just like everyone to know that some shelters will accept pets, but a whole lot of it won't accept pets. So you need to take that.
Okay. Yes, sir.
The roads are not passable, and somebody in your mobile park is going to die if they don't get helicopter evacuation. How do you arrange that?
You don't arrange that. That would be arranged by the emergency paramedics out there. Best thing is to get them to a hospital. The helicopter evacs will be done by the fire department or the local emergency medical services. So the best thing to do, that's when we tell people to learn CERT, because they can do basic first aid, triage them, try to get them to the nearest treatment center site as quick as possible, and then let the emergency medical system take over from there. So basically, you're not going to be ordering a helicopter. It'll be coming from the fire department.
Sir, what will happen in case of that is the emergency services are going to be greatly impacted. We're going to do our best to get into areas. We will do the best to get the roads cleared, working with public works agencies, but we will also, I think they can hear me up. We will also do our best to treat the patients. We're going to triage the patients, which means we're going to sort it by level of severity. And unfortunately, in these disasters, we have to take care of the people that are possibly that we can save. And sometimes people we determine their injuries are too critical for us to be able to save and get them there. The hospitals will be greatly impacted. Our services will be greatly impacted. That's one of the big stresses that we want to make. But you need to be prepared to support yourself for 72 hours to 7 days. We'll get there when we can, but if it's a widespread disaster, it will take a while. And even if you think back to last summer when we had the windstorm, it took the power lines down, took power out, blocked a lot of the roads for a while. It took several hours just to get main passages opened up. So that's why this CERT is so critical to assist us to take care of yourself. Well, it depends on any given day. To see Palm Desert Ranch, Lodge, and any wells, there's about 40 firefighters on every day between those two cities. The Riverside County Fire Department covers everything, with the exception of Deal City and Palm Desert in this area. So we have fighters on duty, and we can search that back very quickly by recalling people in the disaster. So our resources are very strong here. In Palm Desert, we actually have a ladder truck company, as well as an search and rescue unit, the ladder truck cross staffs, and we also cross staff the swift water rescue unit, the water rescue unit, if we're flooding an emergency. So we've got a lot of large capabilities. This city is one of the few. We actually have 4 paramedic ambulances that are run through the city of Palm Desert, and then there's one in the wells, one in the Ride. We all work back and forth that way too.
In the interest of time, we'll take one more question. We got to continue with our presentation.
I just wondered what Paul's was.
I don't know. He was, due to budgetary issues, he was cut up, so I don't know. Not that I know of.
I didn't want to know, I know where it is.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you. Our next speaker is Michelle Allman, right? From the American Red Cross. She's here to talk about their operations and everything and anything you want to know about sheltering. Let me get your stuff up there.
Good morning. How are you today? My name's Michelle Alleman. I'm the disaster coordinator for the American Red Cross for the Riverside County chapter. I'm one of the 3% of staff that works for the American Red Cross. I do have volunteers in the room right now that I would like to at least wave their hand when I introduce them, that are the 97 percentile of what make the Red Cross do what we do. Paula Deal, right here, she's our chapter duty officer. She handles disaster calls and dispatches our teams out to respond to single-family dwelling fires. John Williams in the back of the room, he's our chapter duty officer as well, does the same thing as Paula, but he also serves as a government liaison between the American Red Cross and our government agencies and our non-government agencies. Sharon and Willis Huddleston in the back there, they're leadership volunteers on our disaster action team, and they also help administratively in the office to accomplish all the administration things that I need to do on a daily basis. So I'm the 3%er, they're the 97%er. I'm going to talk about the Red Cross real quick today, and if you have any questions, I'll take them afterwards. Our office locations are here for if you want to write this down. Riverside is located in the city of Riverside, right across the freeway from Moreno Valley. There's quite a large staff there as well. Irene Long is our disaster manager who staffs that office and an office out here as well in Coachella Valley. Our new office If you pull up our website, it's still showing our our old address on Corporate Way. We moved to Entrepreneur down off Country Club in Parkview about 9 months ago. And we have a really large space down there with lots of warehousing to keep all of our disaster gear. Here's our point of contacts, Irene Long. There's her email address and mine as well. Both of our cell phone numbers are on there. We give those to all of our emergency managers and all of our OES partnerships so that they can get hold of us at any time, day or night. Our mission statement. The American Red Cross prevents and alleviates human suffering in the face of emergencies by mobilizing the power of volunteers and the generosity of donors. That's what we do. We can't do anything without our volunteers. I could not be here today, standing here talking to you without the support of the volunteers in the room, because if something happens right now, they're going to go deal with it, and I'll be able to stay here and continue talking to you. For more than 120 years, the Red Cross has been in this business. There's lots of things that we do. We don't just respond to disasters. I'll cover that shortly. But what we do is we help you in your time of suffering. In the most darkest hour, you lost your house in a tornado, a fire, a flood, or some other type of an event that took from you what you used to have the day before. The Red Cross is there to come and support you, to serve you, to help you recover from the disaster. We work with our partners, the Office of Emergency Services, CalEMA, the local fire departments, to receive those calls for help, and then we respond as they ask us to. We have lots of things that we deal with, not just the tornadoes in Oklahoma, the hurricane over in New York, New Jersey. We deal with flooding. We had a terrible flood down in Mecca last year in October that we had to deal with for about 9 days. Transportation events. Maybe you don't realize that if there's any type of significant event that impacts a neighborhood, the Red Cross is going to open up a shelter for those evacuees to go to. It might be called an evacuation center at the beginning, but if they end up spending the night, we'll call it a sheltering event. But we respond to aviation disasters as well. If an airplane goes down somewhere, the Red Cross will be involved in a support function. That's what we do. We're supporters. We don't take the lead in anything. We support what our government is doing in the way that we come in and take care of the people. An aviation disaster, plane goes down at the Palm Springs Airport. Our volunteers are going to respond. They're going to open up a reception center. They're going to make an area safe for the families who were affected by that airplane crash. A place for them to go, to be away from the media, to be safe, to get information from all of the agencies that will be dealing with that crash. So we're the hosts of disaster that try and take care of your immediate needs. That's what the Red Cross does. The other programs that we have, disaster services, which is probably the most that you see us in the news. Service to armed forces. We have a whole branch of volunteers that handle emergency messaging to our military across the world. The Red Cross is chartered to do that. Nobody else is. We have a lot of volunteers who are retired military that want to continue on helping those that are still serving. So we do a lot of outreach with the military. When they come home from being deployed, we have a group of volunteers that debrief them and get them started back into civilian life. This is above and beyond what the military does with them. This is just the Red Cross part of what we do to reorientate them and get them ready to go back into the regular civilian life. Health and safety services, you probably know that the most by our CPR and first aid classes, our PET classes that we give. All this information is available on our website as redcross.org. You can isolate it to just Riverside County by typing in your zip code, and it'll bring up our local chapter webpage. Volunteer services. I'm constantly in flux and very fluid with the intake of volunteers. We have over 150 volunteers in Riverside County alone that are just working in disaster services. We have another probably 100 or so that are working in service to armed forces, health and safety, blood services, and international services. So we have a lot of people who have dedicated some time and training in learning about the Red Cross and providing the services that we do. Youth services, that is a really big deal. We have several Red Cross clubs in our high schools out here. We have one in Palm Desert, one in La Quinta. There's one down at Desert Mirage High School in Coachella Valley. So the youth are starting to get interested in volunteering for the Red Cross as well. Biomedical services, that's our blood services. We have blood drives every Wednesday in our Riverside County office. We don't have them out here because we have our community blood banks out here, but we do it on a regular basis in Riverside. They collect about 5,000 pints of blood a month over there. International services, again, that ties to service to armed forces. That's so that we can communicate or get communications overseas to our military members. The untold story of the Red Cross. We are silent partners. We don't always get in the news for what we're doing out there. You see us in the news, you got the text, your $10 donation to that number. That's our national headquarters advertising what the Red Cross does. Locally, we kind of just go along and do what we do silently, respond to somebody's house that burnt down, whether it was a major fire or minor fire. It significantly affected these people enough to where we need to go in and provide them with basic needs of sheltering, food, and clothing. And that's what we do on a daily basis in Riverside. We quietly provide CPR and first aid classes. We have them on the first Saturday of every month in Palm Desert or other various locations. Our instructors travel all over the valley to teach this to those who want to know. We support our troops and their families. It's just really important that you understand that we do this every single day. It's not just when we're in the news. Responding to disasters, we'll focus back onto that area. Our initial response is taken by Paula or John or one of the other chapter duty officers that are volunteers for us. They receive the call that comes in from the fire department to our national headquarters phone line, and they get the information of where they need to go, and we usually respond within about an hour. If a need arises that we need to open up a shelter, we provide sheltering with cots and blankets, and we provide feeding. Individual family assistance, I'll get into that shortly. Disaster health and mental health services, we have trained licensed professionals that help people recover with medications, or if they're having a serious problem dealing with a death that happened as a result of a disaster, whatever. We have trained professionals that are Red Cross volunteers that will do this, and there's no charge. Long-term recovery, we have volunteers that are trained in client casework. They call each individual disaster victim and talk to them about their recovery plan, give them directions, hook them up with our partners. We have Salvation Army, Catholic Charities, Southern Baptist. We have so many partners out there that we work with the Department of Social Services to help any disaster victim get what they need to recover. Disaster assessment is something that we have to do before we start assisting any client or victim after a disaster. We have to go out and actually physically document that the roof of the house was torn off by the tornado, that the walls crumbled in, that there is no clothing or food left in the house, the power's out, etc. We have trained volunteers to go out and do these damage assessments so that when we're giving clients assistance in the form of money, it's all justified. We're giving it to them because they actually need it. It's part of our checks and balances. Our disaster action team. We have 15 disaster action teams in Riverside County, give or take a few that are coming and going. They respond daily to the single-family fires, multifamily fires. If there's a road closure on I-10, and it's going to be down for a while. The CHP has called us out to do some canteening, to take water out to those people who are stuck on the freeway, water and snacks. And we have a nice vehicle that does that. We have to wait for that request to come in. We're not independent. We don't act on our own. We wait for them to ask us to come out and help because we don't want to become part of the problem. The volunteers respond typically within 1 hour of receiving their call for help. They go and identify the needs of our clients or victims and determine what services we're going to give to them. And again, the Red Cross does immediate needs, shelter, food, and clothing. That's what we provide immediately if there's a need. If there's not a need, it will be saved for the next person that does need it. We provide sheltering. Kat was talking about the sheltering aspect of what happens out there. We predetermine locations for sheltering. We do memorandums of understanding and shelter agreements with all of our local schools. The high schools are all targeted as potential shelter locations in the event of a large evacuation or the earthquake. Middle schools are also targeted. We have community centers that we look at. Various other locations, the College of the Desert, Copper Mountain College up in Rongo Basin. We've pre-identified a lot of shelters. So it's not going to be, if it happens, it's not like we're going to have to back up 40 steps and go forward. We're already going to be there to meet the needs of sheltering for the community. Then we go into the feeding phase. Well, once you get there and you're sitting there, you're going to be hungry because no matter what has happened to you, you're going to want a snack or something. So we provide water and a snack to start with, depending on how long we're going to be sheltering, and then we move into the feeding phase. We have partners for feeding. We have vendors who will provide us meals at a given time period for an amount of time. We have agreements with these people. Recently, I'm going to plug for Mario's. Mario's did a great fundraiser for us to raise money for the victims of the tornadoes in Oklahoma. They also are becoming partners with us for feeding in case we have to open up a shelter anywhere within the valley. So we talk to people, we get to know our local vendors, we ask them for help, and they're so giving to help us. And we will give them money for their services. We don't expect everything to be donated. If we do get donations, we make a big deal out of any kind of in-kind donation to the Red Cross. We coordinate with schools and churches and all the government agencies to open up shelters. We don't just independently go out and open up a shelter. We work with the Office of Emergency Services to coordinate and decide where that shelter is going to best be suited for the community that's affected by a disaster. Sheltering support equipment. Throughout the valley, we have pre-positioned shelter trailers. And these shelter trailers have cots and blankets and miscellaneous paperwork and some other things that the Red Cross uses to open up and host a shelter. We also work with the cities who have trailers. We're not the only ones out there that have shelter and cots, or cots and blankets. The cities also have trailers with cots and blankets in it. So we're going to work with our partners and create the most comfortable atmosphere for any sheltering operation. We have lots of Red Cross vehicles, and some of them will be able to be used to tow things around. Others, we're going to ask for our volunteers to help tow things around. If you were to ask me how many shelter trailers we have in the county, out here in this area, we have one strategically placed all the way from the Mecca area all the way up into the Palm Springs and Desert Hot Springs area. So we're covered very well around the valley. Feeding, again, I talked about that. We work with our partners. Southern Baptists are great for feeding large quantities of people in a short period of time, for a long period of time. Our vehicles, that big ambulance-looking one, is actually called an ERV, an Emergency Response Vehicle. This vehicle is driven by 2 volunteers. They stop and they hand out prepared meals through a window, and they'll get out and give you a hug if you need it. That's what our volunteers do. The next thing is distribution of supplies. During any big event, that there's cleaning kits that have to be handed out, large quantities of water, etc. we create an area called bulk distribution area, and we use that area with our vehicles to gather the supplies that needs to get out into the community and manage that area. So we have logistics volunteers that handle all that for us. Individual and family assistance. Again, we do immediate emergency needs, food, shelter, and clothing immediately after the disaster has affected you. It's all case by case, so everybody gets treated individually. We partner with agencies to give more resources than maybe we have, but we have lots of partners, as I stated before, Department of Social Services, Salvation Army, Catholic Charities. And everything is free. There's no charge for anything. Our client caseworkers, I have so many of those. They're the heart. They handle the victims after the disaster. They're trained to talk to these people over the phone or face to face to help them recover, to give them assistance and direction. We also have licensed health and mental health professionals who are there to support people in a relief operation. After the Oklahoma incident in Riverside County, we weren't requested to send disaster volunteers. We were requested to send mental health and disaster health service volunteers. That's what they needed over there in Oklahoma City. They had plenty of disaster volunteers over there dealing with the disaster on the ground. What they needed support in was the health service side and the mental health service side. So we deployed several volunteers from our region, San Bernardino, Riverside, and Orange County, to go over there and serve in that capacity of 2 to 3 weeks. And by talking to the volunteers that were deployed and that came back, their impact into what happened over there was tremendous. They were able to get people from looking at the house that was torn down to looking at the picture of rebuilding and starting the recovery process by supporting them. Disaster mental health volunteers, as I said, are licensed and trained individuals, as well as disaster health services. They're nurses, trained psychologists, etc. Long-term recovery. The Red Cross does the immediate needs, but we support in the long-term recovery. It's anticipated that the Sandy recovery will take up to 5 years, that the Red Cross will be participating in what happened on that East Coast over there. And that's supporting in the recovery of those communities, rebuilding them. It's amazing how many volunteers come out of a disaster, but we get volunteers out of that, and we train them to help themselves later on in another significant event, and then they get to go help others across the country as well. Members of the Volunteer Organizations Active in Disaster, the VOAD. The Red Cross goes to meetings with the VOAD, and they talk to other community leaders about being prepared, about what we're going to all do in the event of a disaster. And that's facilitated by the Office of Emergency Services and the Red Cross, and it's been very, very active out here in the Coachella Valley as well as on the Riverside city side. Why support the American Red Cross? Because we respond to over 70,000 disasters a year. In Riverside alone, over 200 times a year we respond to disasters. It's all volunteer. We meet the needs of the client no matter what. That's our bottom line. And if it goes beyond the needs of what we have locally, we have a national resource that we can pull in to support us. So although we only have, let's say, 150 to 250 volunteers in Riverside County to deal with our disasters, if we need more, 251 more, they'll be coming from all over the United States to come and support us. And they'll be here within 5 days. And they'll be bringing their equipment, their training, etc. I want to thank you all for coming today. If you're interested in becoming a volunteer, if you have time, there's lots of different avenues that are available at the Red Cross. You don't just have to be a disaster responder. There's lots of other things that are needed to support the communities that you serve. So thank you all for coming. Are there any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Once an earthquake occurs, how long will it take the Red Cross
That all depends on how bad the earthquake is. If the buildings that we need to set up in are safe to set up in, so we have to use our partnership with Office of Emergency Service, the building departments of particular cities, to go in and check and make sure that that building, let's say Palm Desert High School, is actually safe for us to set up in the gymnasium area. So we don't have trained building inspectors within the Red Cross. We count on our partners to let us know that it's okay to set up in there. So it's all based case by case, how long it might take us. If it's a wildland event and we need to set up a shelter, we try and get it done within 2 hours for sheltering, for evacuees from a fire. Does that help? Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Can you put this right up that has the cell phone numbers and the email backup?
Sure, I think I can. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michelle. We're going to have to switch this off for our next presenter, but we'll put it back up later on today, the address and phone numbers. Our next presenter is Teresa Gonzalez with the California Emergency Management Agency, and she's going to talk about everything you want to know about individual assistance programs. That is, what money is available or what money is not available after a disaster. Teresa?
Well, my name is Teresa Gonzalez. I've been with the California Emergency Management Agency for about 17 years, 4 years in individual assistance, which is what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about. So individual assistance basically is a variety of local, state, federal assistance intended to help the general public, as well as small businesses, agricultural communities recover from a disaster event. The types of program that individual assistance deals with are the U.S. Department of Agriculture, the U.S. Small Business Administration, and the Federal Emergency Management Agency. How many of you are familiar with any of these programs? Okay. Do any of you want to share what you know? Go ahead.
I'm familiar with FEMA. I lived in all that time. I went through two hurricanes in the 80s, and FEMA was out there to help us out, and also coordinate with the SBA and local agencies for immediate cash assistance to get us through the immediate period of time, and eventually help us put up our own water, and all we had to put so we don't have to coordinate with that as well. Just people out there with specters.
So you're familiar with the limitations, which I'm going to go over, or what they can and can do, huh? Right, they do what they can, but there are limitations to the funding that can be given out. So for the pre-declaration part of it, we work with the county. And this here is a pre-declaration process. Basically, as Kathleen said, the event occurs, local government does an assessment, individual assistance, if it warranted, will work with local government to do a preliminary damage assessment, which is basically to verify the damage, because there are thresholds that need to be met in order to get federal assistance. And then the state and federal government will do a recommendation and a decision will be made. So here is just some information on the preliminary damage assessments. As I said, we basically go and verify the damage, and the information is used to determine if federal assistance is warranted. And then now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Small Business Administration and what they can offer to individuals. So the types of SBA declarations that are available are physical and economic. And again, with the physical declaration, there is a threshold that needs to be met. We work with the county, and we'll go out and verify, and it has to be at least 25 homes with major damage, 40% of the market value uninsured. So I don't know how many of you are aware of that. So basically, that's what needs to be met in order for us to be able to request assistance. For the economic low interest loans, that's 5 businesses that are suffering major damages in order for us to request assistance. And here's additional information on that. So for physical disaster loan, homeowners and renters, if eligible, can receive $40,000 to repair or replace personal property, and then $200,000 to repair or replace primary residence. And for businesses, it's $2 million. And this, again, is the economic information as to what the criteria is that needs to be met, which is 5 businesses. And for businesses, when there's an economic injury declaration, it's $2 million for economic injury, and they provide working capital to continue day-to-day businesses and operations. So the way that you would apply is calling the 1-800 number. Does anybody have questions on the SBA part of it? Are you understanding the limitations and what it takes to be able to qualify for the federal assistance program? And I'd just like to stress, although this program may be available if the criteria is met and there is a federal declaration, it is important for individuals to have insurance to cover the damage, because with all programs there are limitations, and the programs are not intended to make an individual back whole. So now I'm going to talk about what is available through a presidential declaration. With a presidential declaration, there is another criteria that needs to be met. In the Code of Federal Regulations, the criteria that is in there is 801 homes suffering major damage, with I believe 75% damage of the market value uninsured. So that's a big criteria that needs to be met. Now, that's not in stone. There has been cases where there has been a presidential declaration that has come in with less than 801 homes destroyed. But what the type of assistance that IHP can provide is temporary housing, repairs, replacement, and direct housing costs. Now, the amount of that grant is $31,900, I believe, today. So as you can see, that's not something that would come in to be able to help you rebuild your home or bring you back whole. Types of other needs assistance that would come in if there was a presidential declaration would be personal property, funding for personal property, transportation, and other expenses, medical, dental, child care, and funeral expenses. In addition, if there is a presidential declaration, the cap that is grant available to individuals who qualify is $31,900, but the state also has a state supplement grant program that once that is exceeded, they can bring in $10,000, and it comes along with you applying through FEMA. But before getting a grant through FEMA, you have to also apply for SBA first, and if you don't qualify for that, then it goes to FEMA, and then with FEMA, you can get the additional funding of $10,000. And there is no duplicate state supplement funding. And the way to apply for FEMA in the event of a disaster would be calling the 1-800 number. Also, I'm going to the website. But in addition, should a big event occur, there are disaster recovery centers that are available that survivors who have been affected by a disaster can go to for assistance. Any questions on the federal program part of it?
I have a question. If there's a major disaster, it might be safe to assume that there will not be telephone or internet service available for which to apply for these loans. Is there a time limit that someone must apply for the loan?
There is a time limit. I believe it's 9 months from the declaration. But again, there is a disaster recovery. Should an event happen, what FEMA does is they open a disaster recovery center where they allow survivors, and it's usually close to the area that's affected, to come and apply in person. And also they would have phones and stuff to use.
And is it like a first come, first served basis, or, or can we assume that these are unlimited funds?
It isn't based on first come, first served. It's based on who qualifies and who is eligible. Any other questions? Yes.
Yeah, I'm a little confused on the SBA loans. If you live in a gated community and we have a major disaster, 25 homes have to,
Countywide.
and I'm talking about in my complex, in the gated community, the 25 homes need replacement or repairs. Was that the criteria for the small loan?
That the criteria is 25 homes have to have suffered major damage or 40% of an insured loss. And basically, it's a declaration, an SBA declaration for the entire county. So it's not just your community alone. Let's say your house you would be eligible under that declaration to apply, and whomever else is affected in that event. Does that answer your question?
I think so. Thank you.
Anybody else? So under a major declaration, the county would do the request, the state would determine whether or not federal assistance is warranted. The Disaster Unemployment Assistance Program is another one of the programs that can fall under a presidential declaration. And basically what this does is if you are currently on unemployment and say you were going to start working within a week and then that business was destroyed and you're already 3 months into your unemployment. I believe unemployment only lasts up to 6 months. What would happen if you're affected by the event is your unemployment would be extended out to 26 weeks if due is approved under a presidential declaration. Another program that's available for the county is crisis counseling, which provides immediate service programs and regular service programs. So basically what we do, we work with the Department of State Hospitals, who works with the counties and determines whether or not this type of funding is needed in order for them to be able to continue to give survivors crisis counseling services. Some other state programs and resources that are available in the event of a disaster, and this can be a state or federal declaration, would be, for instance, if there's a disaster, and it could just get a small business administration declaration, which is 25 homes that have been damaged. If the county decided they can open a local assistance center, and how many of you are familiar with a local assistance center? One. So what the county does is they decide to open a local assistance center, and basically it is an area close to where the event had occurred, where the public could come to try to begin their recovery by having all the different resources together. So one of the state agencies that CalEMA coordinates with is the Contractor State Licensing Board. And what they can do is, let's say you were going to begin to start to rebuild your home, they can offer a service such as to check the license to make sure that it is valid, and they can also give you documentation as to what to look out for so that you can deter from fraud. Department of Insurance is another state agency that we would ask to come out, and what they can do is they can give you information on your insurance companies. If you're having problems getting your insurance benefits, you can talk to them, and they will work with you and help you through the issues. And they also look out for fraud. Franchise Tax Board is another state agency that we work with, and this is for fires. If your tax papers are destroyed, they can offer you replacement of your tax papers. And they can also extend your tax due date. Housing and Community Development is another department that we work with, and basically what we work with them is looking at what funds are available that may be able to be reallocated for unmet needs as far as renting places to stay, that type of things. Department of Motor Vehicles, another state agency that we work with in the event, and I say fires because in some cases, if it's an earthquake or flood, sometimes your documentation wouldn't be completely destroyed. In a fire, it would, but they can also offer services such as replacing your registrations, license, and those type things. Voluntary organizations, which is another partner that we work with, as American Red Cross said, all the things that they can help with as far as immediate needs and long-term recovery. We work with the Southern Baptists in the case of a fire and earthquake. They can do debris removal. Zuchi, which is at your left corner, they're also a nonprofit, and they usually help with immediate needs, giving out debit cards, things like that. Salvation Army helps with feeding and other things. So this is what we call our basic sequence delivery wheel. So in a big disaster, all of these types of assistance would be available to the locals if there was a declaration. But what if there wasn't, if you didn't have insurance? So if you didn't have insurance, you'd be able to go to American Red Cross, FEMA, SBA, and those type of services that are listed. But if there wasn't FEMA, then you would turn to the SBA, and again, I explained to you, it's a loan service that you can apply for if you're eligible to begin recovery. But if there's not an SBA declaration or, again, FEMA, other needs, then you would have your emergency assistance, American Red Cross, voluntary agency liaisons, or voluntary agencies, small business, state supplement grant, and the others listed. Now, Cora Brown, I'm going to go back on that one. How many of you are familiar with the Cora Brown funding or know what that is? So I'll explain to you what that is. The Cora Brown Special Federal Funds, basically it was a woman who passed away and left her money to the Federal Emergency Management Agency to help people who didn't quite fit under FEMA's categories for assistance. For instance, I can give you an example. I believe it was in '98. There was a gentleman who needed mortgage assistance, but that type of assistance wasn't available through FEMA or SBA or any other resource. So what FEMA did is they used the Cora Brown funds to help him get through with the mortgage assistance that he needed to help him with recovery. So but there has to be a presidential declaration in order to use that fund. Just want to put that out there. So if that wasn't available, then again, you'd have SBA, long-term recovery, local block grants, and your state supplement grant would not be available. How many are familiar with the block grants, the state programs? So there's block grants, state programs available through, I believe I forget the agency. But what we can do with that state agency is we can ask them to reallocate funding for unmet needs that fit under their categories to help individuals, such as with rent and other residential needs. So again, if those other assistance are available, that's what's left. But what it can come down to, if there's no federal assistance available, then we would really rely on the voluntary organizations to help with recovery. So I'm just going to go through this slide. And again, I spoke a little bit about the local assistance centers and what type of assistance would be available at the assistance centers. And these are a list of local, state, and federal agencies that would be there and could provide different kind of assistance to individuals to help them begin recovering. And again, more other groups that would be at the local assistance centers would be the nonprofits, voluntary agencies, community-based, or select private entities, When I say select private entities, that would be like your utility companies where you can go to and you can ask them to postpone your payment, maybe shut off your utilities because you're out of your home. So I'm going to put my information up there. If you guys have any questions, go ahead and ask. If you would like to contact me for more detailed information, you're welcome to.
Are there any questions, Teresa, at this moment?
Go ahead. Oh, I thought you were. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. Okay, it's been a lot of information so far. I know everyone's probably a little tired, but we have one more speaker that is electrifying. Sorry for the pun. Jennifer Kuzak from the Southern California Edison.
Thank you, Stephen. This is a great turnout. So my name's Jennifer Kuzak. I'm Local Public Affairs Region Manager for Southern California Edison, and I cover the city of Palm Desert, among other cities here locally. And safety and service reliability are Edison's top priority. And as part of our safety commitment, helping to educate our customers about how to be prepared, not only for an emergency of great magnitude, but also a power outage, one that maybe many of you have experienced. How many of you have been part of a power outage? It happens. And how many of you felt prepared for that outage? Yeah. So we have some handouts in the back that list a number of ways that you can prepare, because outages are very likely. They happen for various reasons: storms, car hit pole, equipment failure. And to prepare, we recommend that you keep a first aid kit that includes your family's medicine. And for those with special needs and for infants, make sure you have a special plan in place. So if you have medical equipment, get with your medical equipment supplier and get a backup battery, or get backup supply or backup plan with them, so in the event of an outage or an emergency, you know what you can do. And then also have a battery-powered radio and cell phone with extra batteries. And now anymore, they also make solar-powered whole panels that you can charge your equipment, which I have one in my emergency kit, so I feel prepared. And then bottled water, at least 1 gallon per person per day. Water is very important out in the desert, and it's important to stay hydrated. It's important to maintain that core body temperature and be safe. Also, food. It's important to have food that's non-perishable, that you don't have to cook, that you can have readily available, and a manual can opener if you're using cans. Also, keep an ice cooler or ice in your freezer, extra ice, or freeze some bottles of water and keep them. If you have one of those coolers or freezers in your garage, you can freeze water, and then it's available for you in the event of an emergency or power outage. And then also a non-cordless phone, something we are so used to cordless that we may not have an extra phone in our house that we can make a call during a power outage. Even a simple power outage can make you unavailable to call. And then flashlights. Not just one flashlight, and it certainly isn't just in your emergency bag, but also next to your bed, next to the exit, maybe in the garage in convenient places. And then, of course, your list of important numbers to call. And install surge protectors on your equipment so that you can protect your computers and back up your information regularly. And if you have an automatic garage door opener, make sure you know how to open it manually, because you can get stuck in your garage if you don't know how to pull that cord and open that manually. And we have a lot more information we'd be happy to share with you. It's on our website at sce.com/safety. We also have 2 different handouts, one on home and office, electrical safety, and emergency preparedness. 2-sided, a lot of information. Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir, Dan.
Jennifer, I have a question as far as an automatic external defibrillator. If somebody is in need of resuscitation and somebody that is not certified to use an AED performs an AED, if Good Samaritan.
That's outside my scope of expertise, I would say.
We have a fire chief here that can answer that question.
The Good Samaritan will protect you as long as you're doing what the right thing is, and that's why AEDs all have instructions on them. However, we always recommend that you get the best kid training, and usually with the amount of training we're putting in schools now, we're putting it everywhere. Hopefully you'll find some strength, but if they're not, it's going to save life. That's what it is.
And where do you go for training?
The Red Cross offers training, free. We have to do part of them, but there are training programs throughout. The college offers training. There are several places, several private companies that offer AED training.
Yeah. So if a business has an AED on the wall and nobody is trained to use it, should that
Usually, in
AED?
order for a business to have an AED in business, they actually have to have training to be part of the public access to regulation program. They have to offer the training to their employees.
In event of a power outage, I'm sure your office gets flooded with phone calls. Does does Southern Cal Edison automatically know who is without power?
No, we don't. In fact, we encourage you, if your power is out, to call us, and the number is 800-611-1911. We also have a mobile application for your smartphone that you can download to report an outage and view outages. So if you're away from home and you want to keep checking to see if it's on, you can call that number or look at the app. The app has a little delay in time. The number, the 800-611-1911, is the best number to call. Give your address. They'll be able to tell you how long the power will be out and estimated restoration time. And I assure you that we are aware that something has happened most of the time, but having more people call in helps us to narrow down that location of where it is, because we send out a troubleman. He's our first responder. He goes out to the site, assesses the situation, and then determines what sort of equipment is damaged, what needs to be replaced, and how many crews will be needed to restore it safely and as quickly as possible.
Okay, there's one more question?
So you're the third speaker that has mentioned some sort of disaster assessment that occurs after there's a disaster. So I think we have to assume that there's not going to be any power, there's not going to be any, the cell towers are going to be knocked out, and pretty much everything's going to be blacked out. What is there some sort of assessment that's done by fire or law enforcement, grid by grid, block by block, to determine where to dispatch the Red Cross or the other agencies and yourself?
We actually have a standing order for the fire department, and we do, anytime there's an earthquake of any magnitude, of a substantial magnitude, that it varies based on where it is. We will do what we call a windshield survey. All our fire companies mobilize, we'll start taking a survey of what's going on, where there's damage, where that is. We report that back to our county office of emergency services. We're working that, helps coordinate that response back to the city. We will make requests, but in like utilities and things like that, it's a priority of where we get on, or where the biggest area for the greatest good points of the need. That's what we have to dig into. That's why, again, it's critical when you're looking at disaster to be self-sufficient for a while, because it's going to take us a while to respond to a lot of it. We may get to a certain area very quickly, but we may be very impacted getting into another area because of the damage, debris, and all that. So that's where that part is critical. We will do damage assessment almost immediately. The last earthquake we had, it was, I think it was about 4.3 that hit the Kansas area about 2 months ago. We actually had all 11 firefighters talk into the community within about 2 minutes after they surveyed the fire station. There was that one after the loss. And they went through, determined there was no damage. Within about a half an hour report that happened. The CERT program also is supposed to do that. The sheriff's department makes note of damages as they go with their patrol deputies. Same thing, we all are out there trying to assess the damage as fast as we can. And it's going to be a coordinated effort to do the most good for most people as fast.
And as from a utility standpoint, we do have pre-identified priorities, such as a hospital or other service type facilities that are important to a critical restoration and the support of the basic services like American Red Cross, sheltering.
I figured you guys had to handle it,
Yes, I don't figure that anybody has to handle, because if there is a big earthquake here at our fault, the streets won't be passable, very likely. And so, I mean, you were able to go out within a half an hour because there was no local damage. But if there's local damage, you can't get around.
That's one of the things that we have to prioritize. We're back to the city, the public works charge, their roads, their streets, get us into those areas. If the area is impacted, we're gonna work our way into it. And that's why I would say preparation is critical. It may take several days for those resources to reach you, even in a small area. We'll go out on foot if we have to start doing that. We'll look at those parking hazard areas, hospitals, colleges, schools, things like that. The disaster plan has been in place for a number of years on a national basis, and our response plan goes in. When it's widespread, big disasters such as that, it may take us a while to get into those areas, to make access to you.
Okay, this gentleman here.
One of the disasters when San Diego, New York, New Jersey, was that they caught the electrical companies with equipment that was probably almost sold out right with before the disaster, and made that disaster greater. What is the condition of our equipment in this area? Do we truly have good standard equipment working, or are we working with substandard equipment that would even make it worse for us?
We have an aggressive inspection schedule, and we are going right now inspecting all of our poles, all of our transformers. But if there is an event of that magnitude with that sort of wind, there's not much that's going to stand up to that. So I wouldn't say that the magnitude of the outages there was caused by faulty equipment. I think to manage expectations correctly, when you have trees coming down and houses falling over, things are going to go out. Yes, we maintain our system, and that's why we have planned outages, which is unfortunate. However, a planned outage is us repairing equipment prior to that. We sent our crews back to help them. Many utilities sent crews back to help restore electricity in that area, and that is because that was a tremendous event of huge magnitude. So.
I understand that. The question is that it was a tremendous event of magnitude at that city. What would make that event even more, or much worse than it should have been, was it started out with equipment. I live in Wallace, with many hurricanes, and electrical is always never a big problem. LPNL always seem to have their systems working as quickly as possible. The question is our systems up to standard today, or are we working with equipment like in New Jersey that's been obsolete for 40 years? They're trying to bring back their little tanks.
Well, I think like any infrastructure that we have as a society, there's opportunity to replace it, and we're continuing to identify and inspect and replace, but it all costs money, and we are continuing to replace our poles and our transformers, replacing some wooden poles with steel poles. We do what's called pole loading, and so we make sure that that pole can survive and hold up to, given a certain degree of wind, but I'm sure that there's equipment that may not stand up to 100-mile-an-hour winds or 80-mile-an-hour winds, but that is something that we prepare for and we respond to as quickly as possible. But we're replacing our equipment. Our equipment isn't perfect, but it is of good working, and reliability is our top priority. So we'll continue to replace poles and transformers and do pole testing. So to answer your question.
Question?
Oh, yes, Dan.
I just wanted to say I'm very proud of Southern California Edison for replacing the equipment on Genotry Trail from those high winds. In a matter of no time, those poles were turned from toothpicks into substantial metal and concrete poles that will take substantial wind. I can testify by driving through that way that within
Thank you. And I'd like to also acknowledge Dan. He works at the Jocelyn Center, and they are a cooling center. Jocelyn Senior Center and the Cathedral City Senior Center are both cooling centers. So in the event of a power outage, they make themselves available to the public or on days of just extreme heat.
Are there any other questions of our panelists? Okay. Carla? Thank you, Carla. Are there any other questions? Well, that was, yes.
Well, there's no perfect utility. Even underground has power outages and has failure, and in fact, they take longer to repair and are harder to identify the cause. I remember watching the videos of Sandy and the outages, and even the underground gas lines were emitting gas. So even underground utilities are subject to damage in a storm of that magnitude. So we use above-ground utilities primarily because it is the most cost-effective and reliable manner for our customers. So reliability is also better with overhead versus underground. But underground is much more aesthetically pleasing and has its benefits also. So we do not favor one or the other. However, we are an overhead utility.
Any other questions? I'd like to again thank our panelists here, our 4 panelists here, with a round of applause. Great job. Thank you. And, in closing, I'd just like to say that preparation starts with 4 steps primarily: be informed, get involved, both of which everyone here did today. There's opportunities to be involved more, as Carla said, as well as make sure to sign up, if you haven't, our sign-in sheet, which includes your email address so I can keep you informed of future CERT classes and other opportunities such as these. The other 2 steps are prepare a disaster plan. We have a great guide back there for everyone. It's free of charge. Take as many as you need. That helps you do that, as well as build a disaster kit, which if you don't feel like doing on your own, we have 2 vendors outside that will be happy to take your orders and do just that for you. So again, thank you, everybody. We're going to stick around to answer any questions. And, our brand new ambulance is out back. Hopefully, many of you have not seen the inside of an ambulance yet and would like to see it. So it's out there too, so feel free to take a look. Thank you again, everybody.